I'm going to be talking about biggest issues. After biggest issues, I will have that slide up for you as an introduction, which will then move into your growth.
Yep.
And then you can do your introduction with a second one of the same.
Yeah.
Then you are
That's
right in there.
Beautiful. Yeah, I was trying to tend to waffle, and the only real reason I use slides is to stop me waffling. Focus needs a little screen.
I tend to have slides with very little on there, and that's why I waffle.
But I think that that's important. It depends on your approach. For me, I think I'd rather than be looking and listening to me than trying to figure out what's on the screen. So for me, it's a bit of a distraction because on the screen they're not focusing on one thing. It's just stuff. We don't have a board. So put it up in the room anyway. Sorry, I'll just demonstrate with my hands.
We can organize it.
No. I practiced it with I usually demonstrate it, but it'll be closer than this. How many are we expecting?
I have about 14 that RSVP.
Yeah, they're probably going to be able to see it from back here anyway, so I'll just do it with my hands.
We'll try and make sure everybody sits somewhere close to the front.
Right? Eagle? Okay. Eagle. Yours? Eagle. Eagle. Hi. Hi. Nice to see you. Hi.
You look a lot like the, I don't know, wartime correspondent or something like that.
I'm just testing the audio. 1 second.
So it's going to be online straight away. Yes.
We're already streaming, just checking the audio now.
Are you connected to the local internet or your? Okay, I will be back. I need to sign the figure in.
You having trouble getting up?
Me?
No.
What did you get enough?
Well, some people are having trouble getting
Oh, yes.
signed.
Take the. Okay.
So did you, do you need to be within the, because I didn't make the sign, you didn't have to, put the internet.
I just signed, but they didn't check.
Oh, okay.
That's probably.
I know some.
Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3.
And I would be using this way where I live, so if I were to use it, I wouldn't be allowed to. Because I'm not using it, I'm not using it. They check.
Some stuff, Wall Street, some stuff. I remember we went to, I don't know the way, but about 200 kilometers south of north. And, it wouldn't let us in. Like, because we didn't take ID.
Oh, you do have an idea?
We kept an ID. We didn't want to have, like, for us, we usually have that, time and walk on the beach and it's just about anything. And we got there, and you wouldn't be able to get back to go home because it was such small beach.
Yes.
And it was just, I said, look, we don't look like downstairs.
That's it, and you've got information.
Yeah.
We don't even have 22 here, like it's
And we
18.
wanted to have a lunch, we really wanted to have lunch.
Yeah, they're nice.
Everything, I think.
Wow. It's disappointing, isn't it, that you've got some little community like that, an opportunity
Yeah, absolutely.
to look around, they're not more flexible, because,
And I am surprised, like, for example, quite old people with their self life. And the whole culture, the clubs, the kind of pushing customers away. That's why when we go there, they can, like, I mean, because they subsidize.
Testing, testing, testing.
Like, people are engaged with the money to pay for it, but they lose money if it's. I mean, if it was a restaurant, they would probably close, private restaurant, they would be closed, like, in 2 months' time.
yeah, sure, I mean, you're right, customer service lines, there's a lot to say about them.
I remember we went to the beach there and we had it. I went to him and he said, I hope you're not creating offices for us. Like, you know, so
I hope you're not creating one.
an office here, like, I mean, something like that. But we sit down, like, usually we go and arrange a meeting and sit and drink and maybe have a lunch. And so, what's the problem? And like,
Oh, so you couldn't have your meeting over like
like
a drink
it
and
was so weird. Like, say, what do you mean? Like, I mean, I really was surprised. And I go, look, guys, those guys are playing cards. So, yeah, they're playing cards, they agree. So, okay, we're going to have a meeting and then we're going to discuss. Perfect. So, okay, I hope you don't create such a nice environment. Of course, I don't go there.
Isn't that amazing? I don't really think that all any venue. If it means people are coming in and not coming back more regularly, it might bring more people to the event because it might be bigger. Like, really obviously, looking like,
In what sense?
taking a table or something like, have food and like.
Headphones?
But
And it's like, and it was like, but it was essentially like no people there. So that's what it's just about. Some businesses really, and folk culture.
find, I think, it's lots of So the network is reason for reliable and if you not something on your website, they misinterpret your name, the line.
Okay,
So I've got lots.
I'm looking for my head to pop up. I'm testing it. Want to say what I hear? Let's see what happens.
Saying that they wanted information that you gave them that wasn't clear enough, that wasn't clear. So you have a general disclaimer saying, do not rely on anything on this website, and nothing is specific advice, contact us if you do see rely on your advice. And then that minimizes their ability to see.
9 minutes. Giulia will do an introduction and then we'll get started. Very good. Okay. I'll just put the camera on at the back.
Can you say me all right, Matt? On the computer screen. Yes. Yep, I got it from here up. Yes. Just double check. Okay, welcome guys. Thank you for
Okay.
Probably don't go too much further that way than where you are. Yeah, but just to like yourself as well. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. Hi. Hi guys, how are you today? Excellent, excellent. There we go, fantastic. Okay, it's my absolute pleasure tonight. My name is Giulia Coletti. I am the owner of the Motivation Club. Also introducing everyone tonight and facilitating the live stream that's running over here on the right hand side. It is my pleasure to be introducing our speakers tonight. Firstly, we have Menno Taverner. This business magician is going to be running us through the risks that we currently face within our business, and then teaching us a strategy on how to overcome that. And then we have the lovely Stacey Smith. It is my pleasure to be introducing her. She is the Entrepreneur's Ambassador. Okay, she is going to take you through the current risks that we're also facing from the other side, from a legal perspective, so that then we can go on and face the opportunities and take them as we go, because we've already faced and prepped ourselves for the risks that we might come across. So without further ado, I will welcome Menno to the stage over there. He's doing a Facebook Live, and enjoy your night.
Okay, thank you, Giulia. And yes, so I'm actually doing a Facebook Live as I'm walking up onto the stage. So hello to everybody on Facebook and say hello to everybody on Facebook over here. So I have to get ready for my presentation right now, and technology is really, really amazing what you can do and the ways in which you can use it for marketing. And we'll be talking about strategies, we'll be talking about systems, and I'm going to say goodbye to everybody as I now focus back in on everybody in the room. Did everybody have a good trip in today? Two. Flight mode so nobody can disturb us. Okay, so I've got a clicker. This is really, really exciting. So we're going to be talking about how to double your business and even more in 2016. So I'll introduce Stacey just a little bit later. She'll be talking about legal aspects, which is very, very exciting, which is also a very, very important part of your business. So what are we going to be covering tonight? So do you want to know the biggest problems that business owners face and how to overcome them? No, not the legal considerations of owning a small business.
Yes.
Okay, the two most important ingredients for business success. What the 10X system is and the castle system, and why these are the keys to success and why very, very successful businesses use them. And how to succeed without being an expert. Okay. Now we're going to play a game of fact or fiction. So if somebody would like to volunteer and read out the first statement.
On average, non-employed businesses have revenues equal to minimum wage.
Okay, so who thinks that's true and who thinks it's not true? First of all, who thinks it's true? So this is people with businesses with 5 employees or less. Sounds about right? Okay, so that's a true statement. People who have businesses with 5 employees or less generally don't pay themselves more than minimum wage, but they work a lot longer hours. Okay, Peter, can you read this one out for me?
Businesses who feel that 20 employees are only 37% chance of surviving 4 years, business that only have 9% chance of surviving 10 years.
Okay, who thinks that's true?
I think it's too low.
It's higher than that. Okay, so this is actually also a true statement. So this is international. This is a research done by Dun & Bradstreet. Okay, we've got 2 more. Giulia, can you read this one out for us?
10% of businesses close involuntarily due to bankruptcy, and the remaining 90% close because the business was not successful, did not provide the level of income desired, or was too much work for their efforts.
Okay, who thinks that's true?
Yeah.
Okay, Okay, so this one's also true. So most people think that businesses close because of bankruptcy. The majority of business owners close their business way before bankruptcy, before they even get off the ground. And so we've got one final one. And sorry, what was your name?
Irish.
Arish, would you be able to read that one out for us?
Failure rate for new businesses seems to be around 7% to 8% the first year. They only were half of those who survived the first year who remain in business for the next 5 years. Failure rate is not that, but it's
Okay, so overall, this is another true statement done through the research of Dun & Bradstreet. So not very good news in that sense. The odds seem to be very much stacked against you. So obviously we're the little guy, and the big guy doesn't really stand a chance, does he? Okay, so there is more bad news. Do any of these describe you? Do you work far too many hours? Are you unable to pay yourself enough? Okay, so the truth hurts sometimes. Are you struggling to find, hire, and keep great staff? So we got the usual suspects there. Are you lacking marketing skills and the strategies to be able to reach your perfect audience? Are you missing the target? Do you feel overwhelmed on a daily basis? So who owns a business? Who does start to feel some of these things? Okay, so a bit of overwhelm there. And are you unable to break down your vision into a step-by-step action plan?
Yes.
Yep, so you're running around like a headless chook. This is Mike the chicken, very famous chicken. And finally, do you feel guilty about not seeing your partner, children, and other family on a regular basis? Happens to a lot of business owners, so they're sitting there all by themselves in the office at night time, still working, not seeing their family, and this is what the picture should look like. You should be out there enjoying yourself, and that's what you originally started your business for, obviously. Okay, so let's have a very quick talk about why it's worth having a listen to me. So I lived in many different places, and that's quite small actually. So I lived in Holland, I lived in Australia, Japan, France, Austria. I've traveled around quite a bit, and I've had many different achievements, not only in business. And so if you want to know more about some of those achievements, then please feel free to have a chat to me at the end. Now, I started a number of businesses while I was at university, and I entered an entrepreneurial competition in Germany, which was a lot of fun. And then before coming back to Australia, I studied some psychology, how to live properly, all sorts of different fun things that would enable me to start a business. And then I opened a cafe in Sydney, and ran that for 5 years. And Waldemeers, as my cafe was called, was a finalist in the Sydney Business Awards in 2010. And then I rediscovered my childhood passion of coaching people, which is what I was doing at high school all the time. People would always come to me for advice, and I'd always have the answers, and I was always helping people with their businesses as well. And I also run a successful event organization. And I love so many different things. So I love to read, and I'm not sure if you can read these, but I love to read, swim, meditate, and the list just goes on and on and on, and we'd be here all night if I go through all of those. So why do you need to learn what I'm going to be showing you tonight? Well, very often business coaches will talk about the usual suspects. We're going to be talking about increased competition, the number of websites that are available, review sites, you need to stand out, 90% of businesses fail, etc., etc. But I'm going to do it slightly different, and I want to share 2 stories with you, 2 stories that really shape what it is that I do. So first of all, this is a hotel in the Netherlands. It's in a place called Sneek, which is up in the north, and this used to be owned by my uncle. And my uncle was a very, very smart man. And he wanted to buy this premises, and what he ended up doing was he had a conversation with the owner, and he had his solicitor upstairs in the room recording, and this was in the 1950s, so that was a really difficult, challenging task of actually getting everything written down and having a witness in the room as well as to what that conversation was about. And my uncle managed to buy this business with no money down. He was very good at talking. And so he ran this business until 1979, the year that I was born. Why he sold it when I was born, I still don't know, because I would have loved to have learned from him and been there with him. And during that time, he would work from around 6 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the morning the next day. And he would meet very famous people. He would be talking to his guests all the time. And he ended up burning himself out because he was doing absolutely everything inside that business. He was working himself to death, working himself to exhaustion, which is the same as what a lot of business owners do. So they end up getting this passion, they get into the business, they start working, they see all of these different things that need doing, they don't know how to put systems into place, and they really work themselves into exhaustion. After selling the hotel, because of some issues with the neighbors, so he ended up having some neighbors that were starting a nightclub, and that caused him some issues. He ended up going into a nursing home where, again, he worked himself almost to death because he just loved working. He wanted to make people happy. He wanted to serve people, but he wasn't using any systems. Now, my uncle ended up becoming quite suicidal. He ended up becoming medicated. He ended up going through a lot of hardships. He had a very terrible relationship with his wife, and that really affected me because I could see that, and I also wanted to get into business, but I didn't want to run the business in the same way that he did. And so I decided that if I was going to run a business against his wishes, because his wishes were that I did not get into business, that I was definitely going to do it differently to the way that he did it. So that was a bit of a cautionary tale. Now, I'm going to show you the pictures for this one in a second, but I once ran into a lawyer on the street after an event that I'd been running, and I had a chat to him, and he said, well, I'm not going to need your services because I absolutely love what I do. I love working, I go into work, I enjoy it, everything is brilliant, and I wouldn't change anything about my life. And I knew that he was from overseas, so his parents were from Hong Kong, and I asked him, I said, so if something were to happen to one of your parents, would you be able to just leave the business, go across to Hong Kong, and look after them if required? And he said, no. I said, if you need to leave the business, what would happen to your business? And he spoke about the fact that the business would implode because he's doing everything inside that business. It all runs based on him, and it wouldn't survive without him. So just imagine for a second that that would be one of your children. Or imagine that that would be one of your parents. Wouldn't it be much better to be able to have a business where you're going to be able to leave at any moment's notice? The business will continue to run, the income will continue to come in, and you will then be able to look after the people that you care about the most. And I think that is one of the biggest issues with regards to running a business. If you don't see that the business was started for a purpose, to create freedom for yourself in order to be able to, at the same time, help people. I think it was Mother Teresa who used to say, and she, at one stage, she was looking after the poor in India, and she used to say, okay, I'm going to eat the same as the poor people. I'm going to live the same way as the poor people. And after a while, she got sick, and she couldn't care for anybody. If you're going to look after other people through your business, then you also need to look after yourself because you can't look after anybody else unless you look after yourself first. So it's very important to have a business that can sustain itself without you. So hope is not lost. So we've gone through all of the sad parts now. So we'll have a quick look at the biggest issues that business owners face. So then some of these include finding more clients. So this is research that I've done over many years to see what the top issues are. So finding staff, staff issues. I remember when I had my cafe, staff issues was definitely one of the more fun ones. I'm not sure if I'm standing in front of anybody right now. Sales and selling. People love selling. Time management. That brings me back straight to my uncle. Getting more traffic. Actually having the clients there. Cash flow. Even businesses that are profitable can go bankrupt. Knowing how to go from working in the business to having the business work for you. And insufficient funds for necessary purchases, another very, very big one. Not being able to grow. Taxes, and legal as well. So what kind of solutions are there? Oh, and it's going to go through them all again one by one. I thought that one was as different order. That's okay. There we go. So what kind of solutions do we have? So with finding more clients, you have lead generation strategies, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So hiring procedures and psychology and policies when it comes to hiring staff. Sales scripts and techniques when it comes to selling, and obviously a little bit of confidence as well, which is something that I just thought of just then. The Eisenhower matrix and other tools when it comes to time management. Social media, A-frames, PPC advertising when it comes to more traffic. So you'll notice that there are systems and ideas behind everything to solving the issues of a business. Tracking cash flows, cash flow management tools, improve cash flow management, hiring a tax expert with regards to tax, hiring a coach for knowing how to get from working in the business to getting the business to work for you, and hiring a small business lawyer for your legal. And so on that note, I'm going to then introduce Stacey. So Stacey's going to come in and actually talk about legal, since that's where I just ended up leaving off.
What a nice segue that was.
I thought you'd like that.
I did like that. I like you with legal.
Here goes. The one on the right shoulder.
Thank you very much. All right. Thanks, Menno. Thanks, guys. So as Menno has said, small business lawyer, I'll introduce myself in a sec, but what I first want to highlight is what are we here for? And that's growth. Everyone who starts a business wants to grow to some degree. And it doesn't matter how big or small it is, there's no right or wrong in that, but no one can stand still. Growth can be what you're learning here today in systemizing, getting yourself out of the business, being working for you. Simple as that. Growth could be building an empire that's international and multifaceted. It doesn't matter the size of it, business is there for growth. So when we're thinking about growth, when we're thinking about that comes with growth. First thing I think of is opportunity. So you have opportunities presenting themselves which allow you to grow. That can be the opportunity to bring in more clients. It might be the opportunity to expand. It might be the opportunity to increase your employee base, which helps you remove yourself from your business, which Mel will speak to later. What also comes with it though is risk, uncertainty, the unknown. With all growth, there is an unknown factor because that growth hasn't been tested yet. And while we can plan for that growth, and we know that that growth can be coming and we can make a great strategic preparation for it, when it comes up, there are things we know might happen, but it will always have some level of uncertainty. And that makes it really difficult for us because we need to be ready to deal with that. So that's where I sit. That's where I play. I play in that space, which is the preparedness, the prevention of that risk, the minimization of the impact on your business. Because imagine this. You're following Menno's amazing tips from tonight. You're growing exponentially. You're doing great stuff. Someone drops into your doorstep and says, love what you're doing. I want to give you $10 million and take you to the US. But you haven't got your IP protected. And you don't have your key employee on a solid contract. And really, the business still depends on you entirely. So you've got to tell that investor, no, could you give me 6 months? Yeah, I think he's going to wait around for you and go, cool, no worries. I'll also give you my $10 million. What do you think is going to go, you know what, I might find someone who's actually ready right now? Do you think it might scare him into saying, geez, if you haven't done those minimal basic things that you could have had done from day one and you haven't even done that, is this really the investment for me? So this is where I love to come in and help people understand what can they prepare for? What do they need to be thinking about? Everything doesn't have to be done at day one. I understand that startups and small businesses have a lot of expenses at the beginning. And so people put off their legals. I don't like it, but I get it. My answer is, the best time for me to do with you is before you start. No one does that. That's okay. Know what you should be thinking about, because then you can make a smart choice. Preferably not when things are starting to go south, but well before that, but put it into your plan. I'm sure that Matt's going to take you through an action plan later on today, where you'll be able to say, right, this is the place where I'm feeling secure and I'm seeing some traction. Now I need to really get serious about this. This is a business that's going to do stuff for me. So I need to take this seriously and I need to start putting some legals into place. It doesn't have to be scary. A little about me, Vivid Legal's my baby. Started that a few years ago. I started this with the vision to dramatically improve the fail rate of small business, which Menace has shown us. And when I looked at this a few years back, it was much stronger than that. It was more in the 90% mark. Peter, I know you mentioned that. And those are the stats that I was seeing and going, this is ridiculous. I've worked in law for 20 years. I've been a lawyer for 10. I've worked in London. I've worked at city firms. I've worked in-house at record companies. I've had a variety of experience, but I've never worked in small business space. Why do you think that might be? No one wants to have a small business. And I said to my partner, my last firm, look, loving this. This is great. We were doing strategic, clever stuff, helping people with lots of money to spend be really successful and see great growth. And that was so exciting. But this is what I want to do. I don't want to deal with problems. I want to help people succeed. Loving it. But why are we only offering this amazing quality service to people who can pay $1? Like, if we offered this to everyone, wouldn't everyone succeed? And the answer that I got was this. Well, small business aren't going to succeed anyway, and even if they did, they couldn't afford us. Which, you know, I grew up in a small country town, and that kind of rubbed me up the wrong way. Excuse my French for the webinar, but that's pretty shit. Like, surely that's backwards. Surely if we did give them that advice, they could afford us. Surely we can find a way to be more flexible and go, you know what, why don't small businesses use lawyers? What are they scared of? I did a little bit of research on this. It's pretty obvious. They're scared about costs. And this is all perceptions. I'm going to couch this with that. These are perceptions because I'm doing it differently. I don't know about anybody else. Can't speak for the rest of my industry. There's a scaredness about our costs, what it will cost you. There's a concern about the language and how you can understand them. There's an intimidation factor, having come into the big, bright city offices with the power suits. And there's also an inconvenience factor that you small business owners need to make the time to come into the city or into your lawyer's firm and take time out of your business, which we all know as small business owners, you really don't have to spare. And so my vision with my business is let's find some ways to change that around. So I work with startups and entrepreneurs. I work in the small business space, just trying to help people understand what they need to know. If I've got information that will help you, I want to give you that information. So hopefully that gives you a little background to me about what we're going to talk about tonight, so that you can take away some tools that you can use in your business, or at least start asking some questions. Let's get into it. Here are 4 of the things that you can think about right now, which are going to start moving you forward into a really strong business and into a business that can experience really great growth. There's other things as well, but these are all we can come up with tonight, and I'm going to run through them because I can't remember, so forgive me if I go quick. More questions at the end, feel free to let me know. So the first is your brand protection and your IP. We're going to speak briefly on your business and growth structures, business structures, depending on where you are now, where you're going, and where you might want to go in the future. Looking at your policies and contracts and expansion and investment opportunities. Number 1, your brand. You all have a brand? You don't have a brand. Do you have a business? Then you have a brand. Everyone has a brand. At the very minimum, your brand is how people recognize you. How do they look you up? What do they call you? What's your name? At a minimum. But your brand is more than that. Your brand is the language you use with your customers. Are you a business coach who's gruff and the tyrant and belts you around? Or are you a business coach who's soft and cuddly and warm and supportive? Neither's right or wrong, but that's part of your brand. It's part of what makes you who you are and what you deliver. Your brand is the symbols and the words that can be recognized from you. That doesn't just have to be your business name. But if you've got a product line, then each of your products could have a distinctive name attached to them, which are also form part of your brand. So a lot of people get a little confused about what their brand is. Just bear in mind that it's maybe broader than you think, and it really encapsulates all of the things that you can't quite put your finger on, and importantly, that you can't physically put your finger on. That's what IP is, and your brand protects most of that. And a lot of that can be protected. So the big thing that I really want to give you guys today in terms of your growth and protection strategies that I want to take you through is how you protect that brand. Why? Because A, it gives you rights you can enforce far more easily. It attracts growth. It doesn't just allow you to have it, but it also is incredibly attractive to investors. So if you're looking at a potential for the future, and hey, maybe you don't want that in your business, but if someone knocks on your door and offers it to you, don't knock it back. A lot of us aren't looking to expand in that way, but it still doesn't hurt to be ready for it in case it knocks on your door. Some of the things to think about in terms of your brand. The most obvious thing that's the easiest thing for you to protect is your trademark. Your trademark is whatever word or images distinguish you from your competitors. So you look at the Nike tick, you look at Coca-Cola, which is both the words and the ribbon they use. There are really distinctive brands you can think about, which you can call to mind quite easily. And the reason why it's so important is because it does exactly that. It distinguishes you from your competitors. So by registering your trademark, which in Australia we do nationally, but you can also register internationally, what that allows you to do is easily have an easy method to stop your competitors copying you. The rights you get when you register your trademarks is the right to stop someone doing the same or similar thing that you're using, the same or similar trademark. So it's relatively broad. And what it means is that you can stop them copying you, which gives you an edge in the market. Without registration, you still have rights. Don't fear. If you spent some time building up your brand, building up what you do have rights. But to enforce them, you have to go to court. You have to prove you've got a reputation, and it's limited to the geographical location where you have a reputation. So if you guys are operating here in Sydney and no one knows you in Perth, then someone could start in Perth with the same name as you, and you are going to find it very hard to stop them doing that. And if that's the case, what happens when you get an opportunity to expand to Perth? Well, your customers know the difference between you and your competitor who's now using the same name as you. What happens even more, this is something I see a lot of, what happens even more if that guy over in Perth does one thing? There's something totally dodgy. And suddenly social media is talking about this business, which is not the same name as you, doing this really dodgy thing. Are your customers going to know it's not you? How do you define that? And you can't control that, that's a third party. So if the smallest piece of advice you take away from me today on branding is register your trademark, then please take that with you. It's not as expensive as you might think. It lasts 10 years. It takes 7.5 months as a minimum to get through. So start early, get it going. Don't do something descriptive. If you do have a descriptive trademark, come and see me and we'll talk about how to fix it. Other little things people are really scared about in branding, which I'll run over pretty quickly for you. Confidentiality. Confidentiality is automatic. So things that are provided in the context of a confidential situation will be implied to be confidential. Anything else you would need to really have something written to suggest that it is. So if you're in a meeting, in a closed meeting, there's only 3 of you and the curtains are drawn and everyone's kind of being shady, it would be implied that the information that's being passed there is confidential. If the information is key to the other person's business and therefore you wouldn't expect it to be publicly available, well, you can expect that to be confidential. But if you put it out there in the public, if you've got a process, let me give you an example. I have a client who has a personal training business over in Perth, and I spoke to him this morning actually. And he has said to me, right, he's developed this amazing process, a whole new process of personal training, and he's going to start licensing that out for other people to use. But he doesn't want somebody to steal the process and flog it off under a different name. The difficulty with the process is it's not a trademark, it's not patentable, and it's an idea, it's a method. And the trouble with methods is they're very hard to protect. And with his concept, this process he's going to be demonstrating within all of his personal training clients, it's going to be publicly available. Anybody wondering why is going to see it. So it no longer has the air of confidentiality on it. So if you guys have got anything that you find is unique to you, it might be your unique selling position, but it's not a trademark, it's the way you do something, it's a method or a process or a system, then just bear in mind it can be difficult to protect. Some of the strategies we use there might be to find a clever name for it. This is one that I'm using at the moment. It's not foolproof, but in a way it's kind of common sense. Give it a clever name that can be protected by trademark registration. Get your trademark registration and then be everywhere. mantra is be consistent, be everywhere. Be consistent to your brand, be consistent to your trademark. Let everyone in Australia know that this process is covered by this trademark. What that will do for you, it doesn't stop people copying you. But as soon as someone copies you, they can't call themselves the same thing. They have to call themselves something else. So now you've got this process that everyone knows relates to this trademark, but hang on, it's being backed up by this guy over here. And you have to have a little bit of faith that people will know that quite clearly it's not the same trademark that they related it to, and therefore this guy's copied. Now people won't always go, oh, well, then I won't use them. Some people are happy to pay less and go to a fraud. That's all right. Those people probably shouldn't be your clients anyway. What you need to have some faith in is that when you've taken those steps, you've developed something that's unique to you, you've done it the absolute best you can, and you've protected it, then people will come to you because they know that you're original and they work with you. That's about as far as I'm going on branding tonight. Was there anything in particular I could cover for you really quickly that maybe I know some people won't miss the beginning before we move on to the next little section? Roars from the crowd, that would be a no, so moving on. Structure, business structures. People hate talking about business structures. It's like, oh, God, it's like an accountant and a lawyer all at once. And I get that. But there's a lot of strength in having the right structure, and the thing that people really miss is don't just stick with structure. Just because you're in structure today doesn't mean it's a structure for you moving forward. And we're here today talking about growth, about systems, about how to improve and protect yourself. So let's talk about that really briefly in structure. When you're starting out, you need to think about what you're going to use. Now, you speak to an accountant, they're going to give you a different answer to me. Are there accountants in the room? Good. Accountants have a focus that's different to a legal focus. My focus has always been protection. It's making you as protected and strong as you can, because that gives you the best opportunity for growth and success really quickly. An accountant's focus, generally speaking, is more on tax saving. Nothing wrong with that. That's great. But I will always recommend that people try and start as soon as they possibly can with a company. And the reason I say that is this, in case you don't know, if I'm being too simple, I apologise, but some people don't know this. As a sole trader, you have absolutely every single skerrick of responsibility, liability, and risk on your personal shoulders and on your personal assets. That means if you cannot pay your creditors and they make a claim which you can't pay, they can take your stuff and sell it. There's exceptions which discipline of the video I can't go into, but essentially speaking, you lose your stuff to pay for the risk of the business. When there was an alternative, if you use a company structure, a company is a different legal entity to you. So that means the company itself is responsible for the risk and the liability of the business. So if something goes wrong, who do your creditors sue? They sue the company, not you. And the creditors don't have the opportunity to say, well, the company doesn't have enough money to pay me, so I'll get the shareholders to pay the rest. No, the buck stops with the company. The only exception to that's going to be if you're a director and you're doing something dodgy, so if you're fraudulent or you're negligent, or if you haven't paid your tax or your super, that's where a director can be liable for the risk of the business. But in terms of the general trading risk, which every business has got, having a company means that responsibility is not on you. And the difference Menno touched on bankruptcy earlier being one of the smaller reasons why businesses do go out of business. But if that is what you're facing, if you're a sole trader and you face that situation, you're personally made bankrupt, which means you can't be a director, you can't get credit for more than $5,000, you can't earn more than $50,000 before you need to take other steps. And that's for a long period of time, which makes it really hard to restart. The point is fall over. You're going to kids all over the place. Fall over as many times as you can. But learn from that, get up, do it again. If you've suddenly got restrictions on you where you're not allowed to be a director of a company again or have credit, it'll be a long time before you get that chance to do it. With a company, you are not made bankrupt. The company can be wound up and you have an opportunity to start again almost immediately. So something to bear in mind if you're not there already. If you're not there already, find a time, speak to your accountant, speak to a lawyer, and get into it when you can. Because as you grow, your liability grows as well, and you just want to be protected. Most people who I speak to, and I speak to small businesses every single day, as soon as they're saying, oh, well, I'm not big enough yet, that's cool. When the hell are you big enough? You really need to look at what you're doing, because the liability just doesn't come back to the profit you're making. It doesn't come back to how much money you've got in the bank at the end of the day. Your risk can be so much more than that. If there are certain industries which are higher risk than others, I always say anything that goes on you or in you is a higher risk. If you've got a product that goes on the skin, you've got a food product that goes in your mouth, if you're working with children or animals, it's like you're in the entertainment industry. If you do anything that's physical, so that might be a remedial massage, or it might be a sports centre, a play group, all of these things have the ability to cause physical harm. I mean, if there's physical harm, the damages go so far above what you make, that's when you must have a company to protect yourself. I'm going to stop having that companies now. Yes.
If you are operating under a broker's license, basically.
Under a really quick and cheap option out, and that's fine. But please bear in mind that there are other options around, and when the time is right, have a think about them. What I'm referring to is I'm seeing a lot of comments about people having more than one business under the same ABN. It's like, cool, that's cool. It's cheaper. You don't need to register anything else. You've got two businesses, one ABN, all good. But the difficulty arises there when those two ventures have different risk profiles. And whenever you're starting something new that's been untested, then there's always going to be a higher risk profile with that new venture than it would be with what you have existing. So let's take, for example, you have an existing business, it's got a bit of traction, it's doing what it's doing, and you have an opportunity for something that's a little bit left of field. It might be a new product you're launching, it might be a slightly different type of service you're going to provide. Let's think of an example. Let's use personal trainers again, since we're on that track. You've got a personal training business, it's doing quite well, you're doing what you're doing, you have an opportunity to start providing alternative therapies in your gym. It's not your PT business. It's not what you know inside and out. It's related, it's complementary. But it's got a different risk profile because you haven't offered that before. You don't know if it'll work or not. You don't know if your customers are actually going to want it. And maybe they don't, maybe they do. Maybe you hurt someone. So you see how the risk profile in a new thing is quite different to what you already have set up and has been tested and you've sort of got a handle on. One of the recommended strategies for that is to keep the risk from the new venture quarantined from the success of your existing venture. So you don't want, if both of these are in the same ABN, under the same business model, whether it's a company or a sole trader, if two businesses operate from the one business structure, what happens is if one of them isn't doing well, it drags down the success of the other one, which after all your hard work, and Menno's talking to you later on about how much hard work it is and what are some systems and things you can do to help reduce that. Why would you want to start that all over again because you had an unknown factor drag down something that you know was doing okay? If you have them in different entities, then you're quarantining the risk. And by entity, I am talking about a company, because if you're a sole trader, having two ABNs just makes sense. That you can anyway. A business name does not give you different separate legal responsibility. It's still you personally responsible, so only a company or similar structure will do that. But if you just set up one more company to do your new venture with, if it goes bad, you can just chop that off the name. It was a case of an employee, female employee, was sent somewhere, Australia, Robert or Golden, somewhere, sent somewhere for a couple of days for work, put up in a hotel there. And while she was there, she decided she would have sex with somebody in her hotel room. And they apparently had very vigorous sex because the light fitting in the roof fell off the roof and hit her in the head. And she sued for workers' compensation because she was on a work trip. And at first instance, she won. Because when you're on a work trip, the entire time you're on the trip is considered to be work time. Obviously, the employee disagreed and said, well, you know, she wasn't exactly doing work at the time, was she? And it actually had to be appealed. And on appeal, they did find a loophole where they said she wasn't engaged in work-life activities, and so they didn't need to pay her the workers' comp. But it started a great discussion. We said, wow, do I have a travel policy that says if you decide to partake in extracurricular activities during a work trip, this is not on me? And if we don't have that, maybe we should have that. What else do you want to have in a travel policy? You might want to have some policies regarding other behaviours. Do you want them going out getting drunk and taking your clients to strip joints in Vegas if that's where your trip is? Because that's something I've heard a lawyer I happen to know didn't go down so well with the firm who was trying to impress upon these clients with their respectable conservative traditional lawyers. So your policies have an opportunity for you to impose your brand message and your values into your staff. What other policies might you have? Big one right now is social media. Social media is such an interesting one right now because it's both internal and external to work. A lot of businesses use social media. I'm sure Ben will go over a few things later on in the marketing plan. And so a lot of these businesses now want their staff to be online on their social media during work hours, if that's the most appropriate time to reach out to your audience. So there's going to be a fine line there between, well, how much time are you on? How much of that is actually work marketing and how much is that you checking your own Facebook page? The policy about it, make sure you have the right to monitor and check. What about external online behaviour? What if you have somebody who is a key figure in your business, is front of house, people know who they are, they recognise them as part of your business, and they go and badmouth boss on social media because they got in trouble with something they did and they didn't think it was fair. You might drag down the brand, damage the reputation a little bit, make people think less of your business. Do you think that it's defamation or slander? It might be. Particularly if they're wearing a branded uniform at the time they're doing something stupid. Outside work hours, who cares? You can identify the business. What if they're simply doing something irresponsible? It comes up to a case-by-case basis. If that person can be identified with your business, you have every right to say to them, this is our expectation. An internal company policy is not a contractual term. That's really important. I've seen a lot of people say to me, why don't we make it part of the employment contract? Great, you can do that. If you do that, you can actually then not change your employment contract unless your employee re-signs it. How many times do you think an employee is going to re-sign their contract because you keep changing your mind? As the world changes, as people like this employee who decided to have sex in Melbourne changes, things happen. The law changes to adapt to what's going on in our society, and you need to have that flexibility in your business. So the better way to do it, that's been developed over the last 5 to 8 years, is to have a contract which says the employee agrees to comply with the company policies as they may change from time to time. That gives you the ability to change your policies from time to time. If employers agree with it, they don't need to stay employed with you, or they have an opportunity to raise it with you. If they don't raise with you, that they don't agree with the new policy, then they are deemed to have accepted it. So having internal policies in relation to a bevy of different things. It can be uniforms, it can be on-site behaviour, off-site behaviour, online behaviour.